leaders, they create such an impact on their team, their organization, their direct reports, on initiatives. So coaching provides a way to kind of amplify their impact.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Executives, the show where we navigate in the intricate world of executive leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and personal stories of successful professionals shaping the global business landscape. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Grant Calder to the podcast. Grant is a pioneering leader in the world of coaching and leadership development, serving as the CEO and co-founder of both The Role and Flyt.coach. With over 2,500 hours of global coaching experience, Grant has a unique perspective on leadership, having worked with clients across 50 plus countries and 15 plus industries. He has been instrumental in innovating coaching management through Flyt.coach, a cutting-edge SaaS platform that enhances coaching efficiency with AI-driven analytics. Beyond his entrepreneurial ventures, Grant also plays a pivotal role at the Stockholm School of Economics, where he leads executive coaching programs and supports the next generation of entrepreneurs. His work with Paragon Leadership International further amplifies his commitment to shaping future leadership dynamics. Let us welcome Grant. Hej och välkommen till podden, Grant.
Hey Majid, du pratar jättebra på svenska. I said, hey Majid, you spoke really well in Swedish.
Oh, thank you. I had no clue because maybe I felt a little Swedish that time, but
Well, you certainly could have fooled me. And Majid, it's an honor, and I'm thrilled as well to be on the Executives podcast with you. And I view this as like a wonderful opportunity for a conversation about topics I love. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for your time, because what I learned so far that people actually want to hear stories of professionals and successful people like yourself. They are interested in learning and growing, because you might be walking down the street, you might be doing grocery, but people might not know you personally. But that's normal because there are over 7 billion people in the world. You can't know everyone. But let's hear more about yourself. I try to do justice by cramping as much information as I can into an introduction that is crisp and also gives an overview. So would love to hear more about who is actually Grant.
Yeah, so I thought you did a really good job at giving a snapshot about me. And so you can tell by my accent, I'm an American. I'm an American from New York City who's been living in Stockholm, Sweden for 24 years. And the background is when I was 18, I came to Sweden with my parents on a business trip and met my future wife, who was the daughter of one of the Swedish businessmen. We met in Paris after meeting in Sweden, fell in love, dated, and eventually got married. And when I was 30, I moved here. My background is in entrepreneurship, business development, and I'm really interested in people. I'm very driven. I'm interested, curious about development and people. So that's a little bit about kind of my personal background and professional background. And you summarized it very well. I'm the CEO of Flyt, which is the Swedish word for flow, efficiency, and quality. And that's the name we gave to the coaching management platform, the SaaS solution, which I co-founded. I'm also the CEO of The Role, which is an executive coaching and leadership development company, which I founded before Flyt. So that really gave me the knowledge and the experience, and I could see the opportunities for creating Flyt. And as you mentioned, I have an amazing opportunity. I've been working with the Stockholm School of Economics for 15 years. I did my master's there, and I run different programs there with amazing people supporting young, amazing leaders and master students to develop themselves. And then you mentioned my American partner, Paragon. So they're a really fantastic leadership development and executive coaching in America. And they have global business. And I formed a partnership with them, I think 7 years ago. And one of the things I really like about them is their CEO. I've learned a lot from her, Janice Kuprick, and her whole team. And not to mention, they do really interesting work in America. So I get to go into my home country and work with Americans sometimes, which I really enjoy.
Interesting. That's a lot of experience, and I'm super excited. Before we dive into the serious topic, let's have like a fun question. That's what is your favorite food? What do you love food? Because a lot of my friends who know me, they know that I love food, for example. So, what is your favorite food?
I'd say if I could have one food on this earth, it would be cheese. I'm a cheese addict. I love cheese. My children tease me about it because I go into my fridge late at night when I've already had too much to eat. Last night, it was like 1 a.m. and I came home. I was craving it and I took out some bread, some Hellman's mayonnaise, a piece of ham, tomatoes, and I put like 3 different kinds of cheese on it and melted it. So I had Swiss cheese. I had the American cheese. I know some people question the quality of that, but I love American cheese. I grew up with it on burgers. And then I had some little wedges of brie on it. And I melted all of that. And I'm confessing this to you, but cheese is something I just love. I mean, there's plenty of other foods that I love, but if you pin me down, I'd go with cheese. How about you?
That's interesting. For example, the food I can eat every single day is biryani. It's like chicken with rice. So it's the whole process how you make biryani is an art. You cook the chicken separately and then you cook the rice separately, and you don't cook it fully. You cook it like 60%, 70%, and then you have to layer it up, like one layer of rice, one layer of chicken, one layer of rice, one layer of chicken.
Wow.
And then you add color to it. If you look at the biryani picture, for example, if you look at any biryani, then you will realize it is like a very vibrant sort of food. And it is, of course, spicy. I love spicy food. So, I mean, that would be one food I can like eat every single day without getting bored.
I could see adding cheese to you call it the biryani. What do you call it?
Biryani, eh?
Biryani. I could definitely see some cheese in there, and we'd have a combo.
I mean, what you just did, basically, a lot of people might find it like, they might not be happy about it because cheese, biryani itself is like sort of like a really important dish. And
Okay.
Even in Pakistan, where I come from, it's like cities just like argue, like, hey, you make the best biryani. No, we make the best biryani. So it's a little bit. Now let's talk about why we are here. The topic for discussion that I have is innovating leadership, the intersection of technology and executive coaching. Because let's be honest, a lot of executives do need to be coached and trained, because they took the role, have no clue, and how can we put AI or technology into it?
For me, it was an epiphany, the ultimate conversion that appealed to my interests. So something I would call creative production, creating innovative products and services, and also enterprise leadership, and then developing people. So I'd see it as like such an exciting space. And I remember back in 2011, 2012, when I got my coaching degree, I got certified in executive coaching. And in the first day, the first class, I was sitting next to another guy who had a kind of a business background. And we went out and sat at a picnic table and literally started thinking like, this is something that could be delivered at scale to leaders, but you need some sort of digital tool to do that. This is such an incredible activity, leadership development and executive coaching. I could see how you could deliver targeted learning content to many more people, how you could also innovate with reporting and analytics. Like I had this thought about it. It was like an epiphany, my first day of coaching. So that was back in 2012, like I say, and there were almost no coaching platforms out there. There was just a few. I was so impressed by coaching and the impact it could have on leaders. And I thought, you could really scale this out to more people and you could amplify this activity. And then as I started to do coaching at scale with groups of leaders, so say 20 leaders or 50 or even up to 100 in a group, I could see that you spent a lot of time on administration, and there were a lot of activities which wasted time and it could be automated. And then you could spend more time on the actual coaching itself, which would amplify the impact. You could bring customized learning content to people. So I'm a big believer in targeted learning content for leaders and really personalizing coaching for them. And I really feel like a digital tool where you can easily share with them best practices on networking or best practices on managing a team, whether it's a video, an article, a link that directly links to the coaching conversation and the discussion you had, and the gap they want to close and the way they want to grow. So all of this made me really excited to explore how could technology do something about this. And originally I started researching coaching platforms, and there's a few people out there doing it. They were pretty rudimentary, and there weren't any out there that did exactly what I wanted them to do. And of course, developing your own software is such a big, arduous project. So I put it on the back burner. And a few years later, I went back and did more market research, and I could see more people developing more platforms. And that excited me that, the market was getting traction with these platforms. I mean, they were new and they were experimental and everything, but I could see that it was slowly taking grasp. And then I decided, okay, let's build our own. And it was a pivotal moment when we decided, because of course there's such an investment in that, in time, resources, people, everything. It's, you take your dice and you roll the dice. But it was a great decision, and now I can implement the ideas that I have and that the people around me have and what we learn about. And yeah, so it's just exciting. And I see so many future possibilities and so many ideas I want to get to. And I believe coaching is such a wonderful, wonderful tool in leadership development itself. And I believe leaders, they create such an impact on their team, their organization, their direct reports, on initiatives. So coaching provides a way to kind of amplify their impact. Like I always said, my mission is to empower people to realize their full potential so they can make a better world. I thought, what does coaching actually do, or what's the meaning in it? Like if I look back at my life when I'm 80 in a rocking chair, what did I actually do that meant something? I think we all try and strive to find our personal meaning and what's our mission on this earth. And I thought, oftentimes a coach will help a leader reflect on, it's the leader themselves that takes the action, that makes the decision, that goes out there and actually does it. But we help that leader see the possibilities and stretch themselves. We support them to grow beyond what was right in front of them. So if technology can influence that, ultimately we can make a better world. I've been coaching people who have been interested in the combination of sustainability and technology, sustainability and finance, or even working in the healthcare sector and the med tech sector. And when you coach them, they push themselves to do one thing slightly better, to call one more person, to bring some more people together, to, advocate for an opportunity that'll merge 3 organizations together into one and maybe create a better outcome.
That's very interesting. That's super, super cool. Because I think 2012, I was just 1 year into my career. So I just started working. And that time, the whole SaaS world was very, very new, extremely new. Actually, there were not many SaaS tools out there in general, not talking about leadership training, but in general, it was really, really rare. And they were really expensive licensing fees and so on. You basically started really early. And since then and now, it's almost 13 years have passed. So what were challenges that you saw while you were actually developing the whole platform, and how did you overcome them?
I guess another question I could say is, what challenges didn't I experience in developing this platform? So I'll be specific, but when I think about that, I've thought about that a lot because I have faced so many challenges, and I've faced financial challenges, the cost of developing a software platform, the investment needed, the time. I've thought, your pricing models, just financial audits, like financial reporting, like everything in the finance area, figuring that out as you grow. I started by myself with an idea in a room and, slowly kind of moved along and developed. COVID knocked our business in half, literally chopped our revenue in half. And we're all suddenly working remote and managing that. And we had to do a reorganization and make changes after that. Serious illness in the team. Like there are several members in our team that got serious illnesses. I was in the hospital at one point for 3 months. And how do we deal with that when we lose a key person in the team for a while? How do we support them? How do we deal with it emotionally? How do we deal with it practically? HR and employment issues. Bring those on. As any kind of startup grows and everything, there's teething pains and culture pains and team pains. I think specifically regarding coaching platforms, it was analyzing this unfolding cowboy market and trying to figure out what's a smart bet to place, which lane are we going to go down? That was a huge challenge because trying to be all things for all people. In the beginning, we were trying to figure that out. And then we had to place a bet. And what are we going to focus on? And how are we going to do that? That was a massive challenge. Pricing was a challenge. Roadmap priorities, like every client wants different special features. And what's the timing of that? And how does that affect the business relationship? And which features benefit, the aggregate of clients? And another smart bet, security is so important. Data, privacy, security. So going through the process of getting an ISO certification so that we have information security management systems in place. A small organization struggles to actually do that correctly, but you have to invest a lot of time and effort in that. So all of these things have made me believe, and I could go on, sales, bureaucracy, company structure, looking at do you separate your software business from any other type of business? And then, you're trying to be a thought leadership, so you got to stay educated. But what this all made me understand, if I boiled it down to one thing, my kind of lesson or takeaway is you need to develop a high level of resilience. You need to seriously study resilience, study the science of resilience. Or that's what helped me. I somehow have managed to navigate these challenges and with others and with the support of others. That's another thing, collaborating with others on the challenges and the problems. But luckily, due to my coaching education and my own interest in personal development, I dive deep into the science and research on resilience. So I started studying neuroscience. David Rock wrote a book called Your Brain at Work, which is for me my all-time favorite book. How do you manage your time, your mind, your emotions, and your focus based on neuroscience research? Carol Dweck's work on, the growth mindset. How do you look at hard work, effort, challenges, and mistakes? Instead of being diminished by them, you grow from them. The adversity advantage mindset. There's a great book out by someone who got blind when they were young. And it was a devastating impact on this person. And then he figured out that, in life and in business, every adversity you face, you can actually look at that, flip the script, and use that in some positive way. And it's not like fluff. If you really look at your adversities, they're a pivot point. They're an inflection point for a pain point. Necessity is the mother of invention, and you can find some kind of advantage out of that. There was the work of Martin Seligman on flourishing. How do we humans flourish? and the PERMA model. So even if you're busy creating a software platform or service and managing your team and leading others, you need to really develop, he has an acronym called PERMA. So you need to spend time doing things that bring you positive emotion. The E is for engagement. You need to be engaged in what you're doing. You need to find out where you experience flow and what really interests you and make sure that you're tapping into that. The R is for relationships. You need to make sure that you're taking the time to spend time with people that you have a lot of trust with, that listen to you, that give you appreciation, and that you can do the same with them. So meaningful relationships versus surface relationships. And then the meaning part is incredibly important. That's M. We all need to figure out what's meaningful to us. So Daniel Pink talked about meaning, how important it is for us to understand what's meaningful to us. So what I'm doing, developing people, I find that meaningful so I can push through the challenges of software code and trying to sell the thing and trying to market the thing. So that's just a few things. And I'll just close by saying this. There's a great chapter in a book that I recommend for everyone facing challenges and entrepreneurs alike. It's Ashley Vance's book on Elon Musk. And there's this great chapter in the book called Pain, Suffering, and Survival, when everything, Tesla, SpaceX, and Solar City, are all melting down. Cash flow is out. The rockets are blowing up. The batteries in Tesla aren't working. The sun tiles aren't working. He's getting divorced. There's no money left. He hasn't slept. But, it's about having the resilience to face those challenges and staying in proactive action. Motion equals emotions to get in motion.
I have read that book. It's pretty good. I mean, it shows you it's not just the grass is green. You will have issues, you will have challenges, and you have to fight through them. And what you mentioned now, the whole point about you need to find meaning. If you don't enjoy your work, you will get up in the morning. You will be like, oh shit, I need to do this. But otherwise, you will be excited about it. Even if there are problems, even if there are challenges, you would be excited because you're like, okay, how do I get rid of this challenge to basically scale my business up or scale my service up, or even in job, I'm always telling my friends as well, dude, you need to be happy in your job. If you're not happy, you will be frustrated. And frustration is the first step towards a burnout. So be happy, enjoy. If you're not happy, then look for something you're happy in with, which basically is now leading my bridge to my next question of oftentimes I'm trying to explain to people that it's okay to talk with coaches, it is fine. And this was one of the most important questions I felt that to explain from someone who's been doing coaching for years, for a lot of years, why is actually coaching important for leaders?
Yes, it's a great question. And I've thought about it a lot. And the best answer that I've come to is I think leaders are trained quite often. Now it's changing, but they're in a position of authority. And there is a lot of reason to give directional leadership. I mean, that's part of what they're there for. I mean, they're there to, part of what they're there to do is to be a visionary, but at the same time, direct people, educate people, mentor people, lead people, and someone needs to make key decisions. And quite often, they tap into this directional leadership tool. But I found so many leaders appreciate when they can go more into the spectrum of situational leadership. So they can apply directional leadership and tell people what to do, but at the same time, exposing them to coaching exposes them to really what I would call indirect leadership. So it's another tool. The foundation of coaching, John Whitmore is one of the key founders of coaching, and he helped co-develop the GROW model, which is a core coaching model. And it's It's an acronym which stands for your goals, your reality. The O stands for options, obstacles, and the W stands for way forward. And I was fascinated to learn that it started with sports athletes. Now, often when you're coaching sports athletes, you're telling them your shot is off in golf. You should swing 15 degrees more to the left. But what they found is when they asked the athletes questions and said they did some experiments, and they said, what do you think is off with your golf swing? How do you feel about your body weight, your torque? What do you notice when you finish your swing? And the athletes had these insights themselves about what they were doing and also what they could do differently. And they found that the athletes had more of a tendency to take action based on an insight that they came to versus just someone telling them what to do. So with coaching, I believe leaders can access this tool to support their team, their employees, their colleagues to sometimes develop themselves by asking these questions, having these insights themselves, and they're more likely to take action when they're on their own, and also use that to solve more problems on their own versus being dependent on their leader all the time. Just tell me what to do. Give me the answer. Give me commands. So there's a time and a place for both. Microsoft had a revolution when they went to online cloud services. There was a period where they were floundering, but then they introduced the growth mindset and coaching throughout the whole organization. It used to be just pure, tell me what to do, and also like very performance-based in their reviews. And instead, they changed the whole culture to this coaching culture, and it started at the top with the CEO. And it was a big success in really expanding the cloud services and kind of breaking through the ceiling they had reached.
Mm.
So I see leaders using this as another tool in their toolbox, and that's what they didn't have before the coaching. And they realize it, so they use it for themselves, and they can also take it into their organizations and practice coaching themselves and cascade that additional leadership approach.
Yeah, because oftentimes I'm trying to talk with people. I'm more on the product management side. So whenever I'm sitting down with people, I'm trying to explain to them, hey, I can teach you about product management, but you need to talk to someone who can teach you leadership, because you have these young, really energetic, passionate people who love their idea, who know how to build it, but they're struggling with the roadmaps or something, product management, and then they're struggling managing a team because they never done it before. And the thing is, if they hire people who are more experienced than them, then these people have been working and they're, like, they have a different expectation. And that's why it is very important that we talk about, and the reasons you explain, it actually makes absolute sense that leaders and also like managers of or managers only must actually always think about, like, hey, how can I improve my skill set in terms of being a better manager and a leader. Now moving on towards more coming into the platform, Flyt, how has actually the integration of technology transformed traditional coaching methods in your experience? Because you were doing coaching and then you shifted more towards the whole technology part. How has that changed so far, or how have you used technology?
Maybe it's helpful if I explain my view of the coaching technology transformation that's taken place. So I don't know everything. Let me just put that caveat in there. And I'm generalizing a little bit. I'm summarizing a little bit. But I see sort of 4 different streams of activity have happened. So before, coaching was all as manual. Let's call the manual version of coaching. And technology has changed that. So you have one area of the market, which is turnkey solutions that involve a platform and coaches delivered for companies at scale. So now an international company can get there's a company called BetterUp or Ezra or CoachUp, a global company. Instead of hiring lots of vendors around the world and everything else, they can go to one turnkey solution and have all their employees across the world be coached on this platform and collect data on them and, provide a great service and provide it for a commodity price and get a lot of these technology features like analytics, reports, all those things in a platform. Then you have another box where there's a lot of experimentation going on right now. So it's coaching combined with technology tools like wearables, like rings, for example, which measure like your sleep, your pulse. Then you can like match that with the coaching. So, or like there's a lot of experiments in AI. It can be like literally like AI nudge coaching. So people receiving like short bursts of coaching from an AI tool, or it can be like incorporating AI generated art out of a question, or using like I have experimented with visual reality. I've experimented with both the goggles and then also like going into like environments. And I've noticed that you get really shifted when you're in a different environment. So that can really open up the coaching as well. So I did a coaching session with someone on top of a waterfall, in the middle of nowhere. It was quite a landscape, and opened my mind. Or I used AI art. So you have a lot of experimenting going on in that box. Then you have what I would call coaching platforms which support solo entrepreneurs. So coaches that are struggling, and a lot of coaches struggle to get business. They struggle to provide at scale without these digital tools and technology tools. Sometimes their career falters and they never get off the ground. So now there's a lot of providers that provide everything in a box for a small solo entrepreneur. So they don't have to invest a lot of money, but they get a CRM system, they get billing, they get a technological tool so they can work with companies and work at scale. Whereas before, many coaches get educated and then they have to give up and go back to corporate life because they can't find enough clients, they can't manage the clients they have, they can't make that impression. They're limited to where they can do their coaching. But now these technology tools are really helping the solo entrepreneur get off the ground, basically, which I think is great. And then you have one more box, which is the box that we play in, and it's very uncrowded. And that is what we call the enterprise grade, white label solution. So we provide a solution to organizations who want to use their own coaches, work their own way. They want like flexibility and customization and personalization. And they really want to work with their own materials and they want to customize things, but still have that enterprise protection. So all of that is leading to like an 18% compound annual growth in the coaching, like technology platform market. And then to top that all off, coaching itself is growing. So I would say like it's transformed organizations because they've realized the impact of coaching. They can deliver more at scale. So they're including it more and more at a better price point, and they're offering it to more people. And then on top of that, the different features of these platforms are enabling new and creative, diverse ways to work with it. So the offering just keeps on expanding, and the innovation provides new ways to work with it.
Based on all of this, that the technology is there and enterprise buys it, or normal people buy it, normal companies buy it. Can you share an example with us of how, for example, a leadership program that you created or together with someone or alone actually impacted an organization or an individual?
I'll start with it general. and then I'll go to specific. But you can see, I mean, well, every day in my work, I still coach, I still do leadership development so I can stay in the front line in the petri dish. And every day you have discussions with leaders and you see them take actions and make decisions. And networking is a great example, I would say. If I could only give one piece of advice to somebody, if I was limited to that, all the leaders or anyone that I would coach, if they said, what would be the most valuable piece of advice you could give me? I'd say it would be to be proactive in your networking, because I've seen the opportunities that have been created from conversations with people that they dared to make. This could be networking in your organization. So it could be reaching out to your manager saying, hey, could we have a meeting? And presenting how you have a vision of a role that you think should be created for you, or an initiative that you want to drive where you can create more impact and ultimately create a better organization and a better world. Or it could be getting advice from somebody that would shape your decisions or your actions. It could be getting perspective on an issue you have and getting knowledge fed into how you address that issue. Very good advice or whatever. It could be an introduction to somebody else. Oftentimes, like our direct strong links are really good, but if somebody introduces to somebody like a weak link, they call it, you tap into this knowledge you never had. And so if you add that, I mean, the specific examples I have are kind of countless, but the only thing is, like, it's confidential what we discuss with people in those coaching sessions. So I can just say, like at the Stockholm School of Economics, I can't tell you in the MBA program, for example, I can't tell you how many amazing leaders we've worked with in our program who have basically catalyzed their career and their impact. Like almost there is nobody after the coaching program or the MBA program itself, which is an excellent MBA. It's one of the world's leading MBA programs. Nobody stands still. They're catalyzed to make an impact, and they're proactive. So they'll go back to the organizations, they'll get a higher leadership role, they'll go to a new organization, get a higher leadership role, and they want to use all the tools they learned in the MBA. They want to, use all the leadership tools that they experimented with us, and it makes a huge difference. So, I could talk, I've seen it in the med tech industry. I've seen it in the consulting industry. I've seen it, in so many different, the banking industry, the life science industry. There's so many different industries where I've seen people go, specific examples of people like going back and making a difference, making an impact. I could think of one thing. I could just share this. A specific example would be working with leaders on trust and the science of trust and how that can be a basis for everything else. And oftentimes leaders are skeptical about trust or being vulnerable before trusting others. Mm-hmm. And as I often work with very logic-driven, fact-based leaders who are reserved and guarded, and I will ask them to dare to take the challenge to open up and within their comfort zone or to push themselves out of it, but to the degree that they want to, I'll ask them to share some personal aspects of their life with each other. And when they do this, they're afraid to do it sometimes or uncomfortable. But when they come out of it, they will often share about the sense of connection with the other people they're doing this leadership program. And then they'll be amazed at how, vulnerability can create the sense of connection. And then they'll go back. So I know someone who took over 2 different banking teams, and they were at odds with each other. And then they ended up suggesting that they do this trust exercise that I had done with them, and that made the two teams totally gel together and in a very good way. So that's one example.
Well, that's a cool example. And I think when you're working in a professional setup, trust is really important, especially when you're going new, like there are new people coming in. You need to first build the trust. It's really, really important. But the whole coaching is extremely something you have to make sure that you're really adaptive, right? You need to make sure that, okay, because leadership needs are also changing so drastically. Like if you look not 20 years ago, if you look 5 years ago, there was no chat GPT, no AI. Things were very different. If you look 10 years ago, it was even more different. And if you look even further, things have been like evolving. So how do you basically ensure that the programs that you are offering to leaders of different sort of organizations actually remain very adaptive?
But some coaches can get very fixed in their ways, and it's comfortable to repeat. And this goes across any industry or action or role or whatever. But coaches in particular, I think, should think about this. Coaches can sometimes get a bit fixed in their methods and their ways because it gets comfortable. It gets easier to just do that and to do that over and over and over again. Whether they're running like group sessions or they're running like individual coaching. So I learned to push myself to try new things and to try new things with new people. And it's uncomfortable, requires more effort, but the result is always amazing. Like, I mean, what I get from it. So, I mean, I continue to like adapt and add and learn. And to find great coaches, there is an ocean of ability and expertise. And like I often say to people, like, I love to work with amazing coaches because I learn so much. Like I seek collaboration with other great people, and I know they're going to do something different than me, and I know I got to like adapt and adapt my ideas. But you take two ideas and a third generates. So I'll bring my knowledge, they'll bring theirs, and the coaching design. So oftentimes we'll give pre-assignments for coaching or pre-assignments after, and we'll often mix coaching with group sessions sometimes. So I think about the content and also even if there's no content, like my conversation content, just pure conversation changes from being around others. And then it's everything. It's podcasts, it's books, it's research materials, conferences. It's experimenting. It's like a shark. You keep moving through the water. They don't stay still. They keep the water moving through their gills. I feel like a learning shark when it comes to coaching. I have to keep moving, and I think that's and working with great people as well. So that's how you stay adaptive.
There are these people who are stuck to their methods, right? They never upgrade. And then there's the other side as well who have like misconceptions about leadership development. I know people personally, if I tell them, maybe it's a good idea you talk to a coach because they will sit down with you and help you understand that what is missing and what do you need to work on. So what is the most common misconception about leadership development that you, let's say, encounter frequently?
I would say it's a skepticism. A high skepticism that coaching is fluffy. And I would say people don't trust it. And there's this misconception that coaching is fake fluffed. So that's kind of my biggest view of that's my biggest take on misconception. Like a lot of people are hesitant. I mean, of course, like it's changing over time and more people are. When I started with coaching, you work with people at a business school and they want to know like, what's the research behind this? What are the facts? Like what's the return on investment? How, qualified are these people? So I would say the biggest misconception about leadership development that I encounter is like a very healthy skepticism on different concepts from coaching, whether it's working with groups or, and I go back to my example about vulnerability. And then also, people feel that they learn more with the skepticism from what I don't call it, but horizontal learning, like learning a specific skill taught to you by an expert. Like accounting, you actually need accounting in a horizontal delivery format. You need to learn, like, what are the rules of accounting? How does it work? What are the scenarios for it? And, what are the tools? And then, but vertical learning is learning through experience. And I think, leaders really realize that the coaching can help them make sense out of the experience. And the coaching really opens them up to reflection and questioning, and then elevated sense making, like making sense out of something. So, but in the beginning, I often see a misconception, that none of this is worth anything. Like, this is fluff, and I'd rather just spend time doing and learning like concrete skills that I can list off. But then my experience is they have this epiphany, these insights. The feedback that I get is that their misconception's been shattered, and they're going to go back in their organization and start coaching everyone and really practicing these principles.
This is now bringing me towards effective leadership, right? So in your coaching experience, what would be the key traits that actually differentiate, that say that, okay, this person is an effective leader, considering we are living in the times of technology and things are moving really fast, like fast-paced business environment?
I would say, and again, I have to be humble, because one thing I learned is there is no precise form of leadership. There is no one model. Like I from working with so many leaders, I've really realized, but I have looked for common traits. And I would say the most common trait that I've found in effective leaders today is that they have a curiosity about things. Stay hungry, stay foolish, said Steve Jobs. So one thing is that they're very curious and they're humble about their biases. So they let a lot in, and they see value in different types of experiences and people. They don't just categorize, well, this is worthless, this is worth. Like, they look at things and they see, well, what can I learn from this type of person or this type of person, this type of experience? And they're very open to that. And I would add to that curiosity. I've seen a trait of leaders who are left and right brained in a way. So having an interest in the humanities, literally, literature, art, how people think, psychology, and at the same time having an interest in science and math, and how do they blend all those things, like, and having a joy and like blending them together. That's not to say you can't have someone great who's very focused on one or the other, but the most effective leaders I've seen have this curiosity, they keep learning, and they're humble, but very bright, and they combine that right and left brain. And I think instead of judging people, they're very good at vacuuming up knowledge, information, and experiences.
That's very interesting, because I used to have a different perception. I would be like, yeah, they need to be like, hey, they need to know what's happening outside this the company. They need to know everything. But now you gave a new perspective to it, to the whole effective leaders perspective, and especially considering we live in such a fast-paced environment. Moving on now, what trends do you foresee in the evolution of leadership coaching over the next few years?
Mainly that'll be more personalized. I just think that technology will make it more and more and more like personalized coaching support, like matching you with the best coach you could be matched with using like AI and search fields and their experience and yours. It'll get smarter and smarter, like matching you with the chemistry. And then like the targeted learning tools it'll give you will get better and better, at being provided to like just your challenge. And then they'll figure out like, what's your personality type? And they'll match that in with the tools that you're provided, those targeted, like AI generated, like learning resources. And I think like the environments are going to get really, really colorful in terms of what's a great space to expand your mind. You know, they might place you in different types of environments and it'll be easier to do it, whether you're on the run. And then just like tracking things you want to track is going to get better and better. Those are all trends I foresee happening in this space and happening right now, but the trends of the future.
I remember the platform I built before. It was like we took the concepts of dating, like how dating works, swipe right, left. So based on different parameters, we were connecting startups with investors or experts. So maybe that could be a good idea.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, swipe right or left on like your potential
The
investment,
coach.
you know, or the coach, you know, swipe right or left on the coach. Yeah, no, that's great. I love that.
I mean, the thing is, the attention span is decreasing, right? Of people. I mean, before I could watch like a movie easily, but now I basically have to pause sometimes because I'm like, I'm done. I will watch it tomorrow. But that's not only me, that's a lot of people I'm hearing. It's the same thing. Attention span is decreasing. Also, thanks to the social networks, for example. Now it's the smaller reel content, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. If it's 1 minute, also people sometimes don't watch. Just like people are like, okay, I don't want to watch that. Not interested anymore. But now moving towards more advice, because advice is crucial, right? I mean, we have to give advice to organizations, or let's say, especially considering we have these small enterprises, small businesses, and also large organizations. What advice would you give to basically organizations who are looking to implement coaching programs for their leadership?
My advice would be customize to your population. So, of course, combine customization and standardization, but customized leadership programs. Don't do off the shelf. You know, make sure that it's matching the current issues and the current challenges, opportunities, and dilemmas. If you're going to teach leadership skills or coach people on those, make sure that you really, really customize, personalize to the culture, the organization situation, and the people themselves. So that's something I believe in. And then the other is be careful of hiring commodity coaches. You know, they say, pay peanuts, get monkeys, you know, is a classic thing. I don't want to demean, it's not meant to be insulting to coaches who are learning. The impact of the experienced, qualified, good coaches can be oceans of difference. So if you're going to invest in it for a slightly higher price, but you know, work with the quality coaches. I would totally recommend that. It makes a difference in like everything that's happening. So that's my advice.
So you're not the only one who said that, by the way. There was another time I had
Yeah.
Oliver. Ollie is like a lawyer. He also said the same. Like when you hire a lawyer, they have the right insurances and so on. So it's pretty much this like a similar thing. And I think it does experience, the whole point about experience. You collected experience over 10, 20, 50, 30 years. And then if you charge for, you don't charge for the time you basically take to do the activity. You basically charge for your experience because you know how to get to the end state quickly because you spend so much time.
Yeah, no, spot on. The experience, and it's also like in any business, it's that je ne sais quoi, the X factor, you know, in any business you're in or industry you're in, you know, certain people just take to that role and it's working with those people. I mean, they could be a product owner, they could be a graphic designer, they could be an executive coach or a leadership consultant. But in particular, since we're talking about it with the executive coach and the leadership development experts, I mean, it's finding the ones with that je ne sais quoi X factor. And I think too, like super interested in people, because ultimately at the end of the day, everything gets done through people. So people's feelings matter. And when you're working in coaching or leadership development, you're working with people. And so people who really take to that, I think is important.
Thank you. That's very true. Now, my last question would be, what future innovations in coaching technology are you actually excited about exploring or implementing?
Uh, I think the thing that excites me the most is accessible, targeted learning content. It's a personal thing, but I get so excited when somebody is stuck. And the perfect example is like a networking tool. Because I see the big impact. I already talked about that earlier, but I see the big impact on people's lives networking can make. And like, I love to give them like a networking preparation guide that I made myself or whatever. And I am so excited. Like every challenge people have, every learning issue they want to get better at, I want technology to be able to give it to them easily. And I want to see them close those gaps. And so that's the thing I'm personally most excited about, accessible, targeted learning content.
That's important because accessible is important. Sometimes you don't have internet. Sometimes you, and targeting is all about personalization, like you mentioned, right? So, I mean, I would like to learn what is actually helpful for me, not like I'm a goat in the herd, that everyone is learning the same thing because I'm a little different.
Exactly. And when you need it, and when the timing's right, and how you need it, and the right emphasis behind it, and the inspiration to do it at that moment for the meaning and the reason. Like, I feel like technology is really going to help pinpoint that, and it's like the matrix chip, and you get brave and you go do it, armed with that little matrix chip going in you, so it's like my dream, my fantasy.
No, but thank you so much, Grant. That was really, really actually a cool conversation. We talked about so many different things. I'm probably going to listen to this 2 or 3 times again just to be able to adapt, like learn everything because there was a lot of advice, a lot of key insights as well. And I'm always curious about learning, growing myself. But before we call this episode a success, I love to call it a success already. Would you like to share something as a closing remark for our listeners?
First, I'd like to thank Majid. This is such an amazing opportunity to get to reflect on key topics that have been on your journey. So that's something I got to do. And that's because of Majid and the meaning he's making in his podcast. And I'm sorry that he didn't get to talk as much, because when you're interviewed on a podcast, you're conscious that you want to share information. But I'd love to know more about Majid. So have a curiosity in people. I would love to interview him. And I so many times I heard my voice, but I wanted to hear him. But my two things for you, listener, if you've listened to this, is ask yourself, what were your key insights from this discussion? What are your takeaways? What's valuable for you? Take what you like and let the rest go. And my final question for you, listener, is my favorite question on the planet, my favorite coaching question. How do you want to grow next? I really find that fundamental question for all of us is so valuable to answer. And it could be more of something, could be less of something. It could be a challenge, could be a skill, an experience, an emotion. But ask yourself, how do you want to grow next? How do you want to evolve? And maybe there was something in this podcast you can tap into for that part of your journey. Thank you so much, Majid. And I hope one day I get to interview you.
I would be honored. Truly, I would be honored. Whenever you're in Berlin, let me know. We can definitely meet up. But thank you again so much, Grant. And it was really, really cool. I got to learn a lot of things today. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the executives this week. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. And if you want to connect with Grant, his links would be like, for example, LinkedIn, and other links would be actually mentioned down in the description. So feel free to reach out to him as well if you want to connect with him. And until next time, this is Majid signing off.